7 o'clock having arrived, I'm going to call the meeting of the Bridgewater Ravenhill School Committee to order. Our first business is to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Just a couple housekeeping items here, and I apologize to the folks in the meeting room here. Is there something important going on here tonight? I guess there is. I'd like to get rid of items 3 and 4 really quick. We can just take them out of order, and then move back to public comment, if that's agreeable to the committee. Do I have a motion? Made by Mr. Demorino, second by Mr. King. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. Moving on to correspondence recognition. We've had a few emails, one from some parents concerned about discipline in the school and how we address bullying. Just to be clear, we do not tolerate it in any way. An email on the sound quality in the auditorium. Hopefully we're doing a better job tonight. Hopefully it's going out over YouTube appropriately. I would ask all the school committee members, there's mics in front of you or near you, please grab it, speak into it very clearly tonight so that we're able to get as much audio out there as possible for this very important meeting. And obviously we continue to hear from the community about class size and its impact on student learning. Ms. Martelli, graduation.
Graduation. Well, okay. January 7th, we had 13 students in the program, and all 13 students showed up, as well as a packed audience like this. And it was probably the most students in the program having 13. Myself was there, Ms. Holbrook, Mr. Dolan, Mr. Kudowski, and I think maybe Mr. Riley as well. And I just want to thank Mr. Pounds, Ms. Watson, Ms. Moore, and all the counselors and teachers, because without this program, many of these students may not have graduated. So it was attended well, and it was a great evening.
Thank you, Ms. Martelli. It's a wonderful program to get an alternative to the regular day diploma, and I'm glad we support it. Moving on to the consent agenda, it's my understanding, Mr. Loesch, you want to recuse yourself on this one? Mr. Loesch, having recused himself, will take a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Made by Ms. Davenport, seconded by Mr. Demorino. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you for waiting, folks, so that we could get rid of those two housekeeping items. We're going to move back now to public comment. Per our policy, we have a 12-minute limit on public comment at the beginning and end of the meeting, and we'd ask everyone to keep their comments to 3 minutes. I'm going to make a motion here tonight that we extend and waive the rule on the 12 minutes to 24 minutes. If there's a second to that. Second by Mrs. King. Discussion, Mrs. King.
No, I know there's a very large crowd here, and I know that there's... I know there's a very large crowd here, so I really think it's important if people need to come speak and make comments, we should allow that tonight.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I would just ask everyone who comes up to make a comment, try not to be repetitive of other people. If we hear it once, we've heard it, and we do understand it, and we appreciate it. We want to give as many people an opportunity to give their input on priorities that we need to think about in the budget, et cetera, as we can. I am going to try to really stick to the 24 minutes here, because we do have other items. We do have a presentation on the budget from the superintendent, and we'd all like to get home sometime before midnight. So I appreciate that. That said, all in favor of extending public comment to 24 minutes, say aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, we'll open public comment. And again, we don't engage due to public meeting law, open meeting law. But whoever would like to come down and speak at the podium, speak into the microphone so that we can get good audio, welcome to it. And Ms. Mallard, although we know you, name and address for the record, please.
Hello? Hello? Not that I've ever needed a microphone. Ashley Mallard, 270 Grange Park, Bridgewater. Thank you for everyone who came out tonight. We showed up. We have over 200 people in the room, and a majority of them are the BRAA staff here, but we have staff from all over southeastern Massachusetts and south of Boston with unions standing with us. And the big thing we came here to say today, I'm going to keep it short and sweet, is that we support what the school committee and the superintendent, Mr. Powers, are asking for. We need more staff, and we specifically need town council in Bridgewater and the selectmen to put forth motions to make sure that these are funded positions for the school. We can't tolerate class sizes as large as they are anymore. And there's a lot of talk about taxes. Let me just tell you, we do not compare at all the DART schools on tax rates, okay? The tax rates for our DART schools and DART is comparable schools for DESE, that we have a lot of our MCAS scores rated and everything. We are far below on the tax rate and far below, should I say, most of all, on the per pupil expenditures. You have all heard me say this, but we are at the bottom of the barrel in this state on per pupil expenditures. They can only do so much up here when the town can't give us enough. You can't make class sizes smaller if you don't spend more money. Okay? If you compare the towns around us, local towns, Bridgewater, you're at $11.83, the same exact amount for commercial, okay, per thousand on your taxes. I know your taxes have gone up. I live in town too. It's because the value of your home was reassessed and it went up. But guess what? West Bridgewater, you're $13.67. Easton, $14.48. Oh, West Bridgewater, commercial, $24.55. Easton, higher on the commercial as well. Rainier, still one of the lower ones in our surrounding communities, but they're paying more than Bridgewater at $12.10, and they're doing a lot more at least, but I think more could happen on commercial, $16.33. East Bridgewater, $13.67, and just as high on their commercial rates. Middleborough, $13.41. Are you hearing a theme here? We're low. And that's why we're paying the bottom of the barrel in per pupil expenditures. And that's why our classes, don't be fooled by something that says 29. That's an average. I'm talking to friends who grew up in town and their kids, they're texting me and saying my kid's at 33 in the classroom. 33. This isn't 1992, okay? This is a totally different era. We have more expenses in school. Thank you. We have more expenses in school and the times have changed. And I am here today to ask for you to continue to follow me as we lead the path towards asking the towns to support our schools.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mallard. Anyone else with public comment?
Anyone else? Mr. Gallagher. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dennis Gallagher, 160 South Drive, Bridgewater, also the state representative for the Bridgewater-Rainham District. I just want to briefly speak tonight, and I know that many parents have emailed me at the State House this past couple of weeks. I think I've replied to pretty much everybody, and if I haven't, I apologize, but I think I've reached out to everyone. I just wanted to give you a little update. I know it's in the presentation that the superintendent is going to talk about tonight. but the governor's budget came out last week, and with the Chapter 70 monies that has been appropriated for the Bridgewater Rainham School District, the increase is 8.5% over what was fiscal '25, to about $2.7 million increase over last year. The overall increase in Chapter 70 funds statewide was about 6%. So Bridgewater Rainham District did make out a little bit better than other communities. This is just a starting point in the budget process, because now the budget, once the governor has released it, comes to the House, and we have our peck at the numbers, and then it goes to the Senate. So this is just the beginning of the process. But the increase over fiscal '25 is $2.7 million to about $34.2 million in Chapter 70. Chapter 71 monies is funded at 95%, which is about an 11% increase over last year. So I think it's fair to say, as has been said many times, the Healy Driscoll administration has said many times their commitment to public education, K through 12 level, in higher education, is there. And they have shown their commitment through the Student Opportunity Act that was passed a few years ago to do what they can do to make sure the school districts and school systems throughout the state are funded to the levels that they need. Now, I know that there are concerns as we move forward through the budget process. I just want you to know, as your state representative, as we move through the process, I will do what I can when the opportunity comes to see if we can increase that number. In addition, I will certainly try to hold the line for anyone that tries to decrease the Chapter 70 funds.
Thank you, Mr. Mallard. Further public comment this evening. Anybody going once? Going twice? All right, I thought we might, oh, yes, ma'am. You know, raise your hand if you something in that sea of red, I missed it. Name and address for the record, please.
Sure. So everyone's got to move this mic. Lisa Borgini, 11 Tinnicut, Rainham. We're all here because we care about education. And this is a sequel of a movie that we don't want to see every year, and yet we see it every year. Looking at headlines from last year, we face a shortfall. Headlines from this year, we face a shortfall. We've got to do something differently. We've got to do something different. And the thing that I think we need to really look at is how are we structuring budgets responding to things like the housing growth that we have in our towns. When we have businesses and houses that are constantly growing and we don't invest in our school, it's going to hurt the infrastructure of the entire region and the area. We deserve better, and our kids deserve better. I come here every year and I give the same speech, and nothing changes. And it is demoralizing. And I feel like we need to make a big change. My daughter is in the music program, along with a lot of other parents in this room. 1,500 kids have one music teacher. Let's talk about burnout. Because teachers are stretched. I mean, they're not just having a bad experience for the kids. The teachers leave because they can't handle the kinds of demands that they are expected to give the kids. So we need to do something different, and I don't think that this is not acceptable. And we demand better, our kids demand better, and our communities demand better.
Thank you, Ms. President. We have a few more minutes for public comments. If anyone would wish to come up. Going once? Twice? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for your input. We've got a couple more business sections, and then we will be on to the superintendent's budget. So that having been said, we'll move on to educational reports. The Our Student Advisory Council, Mrs. King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to invite Rachel Boyd to the podium, please.
Speak up, don't be afraid of all these people, they're very nice.
Good evening, school committee and all the attendees. Tonight I'm going to report on the extension of Bridging Lives and special events that they have organized. Bridging Lives is a club at the high school that spreads awareness about substance abuse and inspires students through substance abuse education. They've been working on a junior Bridging Lives program with an included curriculum, planned field trips, and an entire extension of the club at the middle school. Middle schoolers have expressed very high interest in the club, so the high school members have eagerly offered recruitment. Last Thursday, Bridging Lives had a very successful event at the Williams School with a bonding introduction, icebreakers, group reading, and a lesson by our very own Mr. Brooks. They most recently repeated this at the RMS this Monday. We should all be very proud of our Bridging Lives members for their action about raising awareness and connecting with younger generations on the issue of substance abuse. Also, I know today is a very important night for Mr. Powers, as he's going to be presenting his budget presentation. And I just want to say that I'm very proud of the action of our school committee and Mr. Powers for handling the limited budget to the best of their ability and in the best interest of our students. Our student group has met with Mr. Powers before, where he gave us a crash course on how you make school budget courses, and he made us aware of what he's been fighting for in this budget. For example, expanding staff for special education. As a result, we are going to be rolling out a survey to students, staff, and families to see how they've been impacted by the effects of our budget and what they want to be focused on and what they think should be prioritized. We are hoping to present this at the next meeting. I know that there's a lot of hard work and tricky trade-offs behind the budget, and I look forward to working and learning from the school committee. Thank you. I hope you have a great night. I welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to school improvement plans. So we have a few more students. Oh, sorry. No, I forgot about you. My bad. I didn't see you in the audience.
Hello everyone, and good evening. I've never spoken to this many people before, so I'm very excited. I would like to speak on the Hour of Code that took the event that took place at the high school library on December 11th. It was the second annual Bridgewater Rainham Education Foundation Hour of Code event. This year it was focused on bringing together music and technology in a fun and creative way. Participants explored interactive coding activities inspired by music, where they could compose digital beats, create visualizations, and even design their own virtual instruments. With additional themes and hands-on activities available, there was something for everyone to enjoy, whether they were brand new to coding or had some experience. It was open to all ages, but aimed for those ages 6 to 13, as this event offered a welcoming environment to experiment with coding while expressing creativity. In addition to the Hour Code, I just wanted to remind everybody that the Rainwater Players upcoming musical, Hadestown, will be performed on May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. There will be more information on ticket sales in the upcoming weeks. Thank you so much, and I would like to welcome Sophia King to the stand.
The other Ms. King tonight, you're on. Thank you.
Sorry?
I said the other Ms. King, you're on.
Good evening, school committee, Mr. Chairman, and Superintendent Powers. Tonight I'm reporting to you about TJ Squared Robotics, a recent hockey fundraiser and solidarity. On January 4th, the game designed to kickstart the 2025 robotics season was released. Ever since then, we've been working furiously to design, create, and build our robot. While it's not quite done yet, we've been prototyping or testing, and every single element of our robot, and our first competition is coming up soon, so everyone keep an ear out, everyone's invited, it's free to go to, and we would love to have you come and cheer. We're the ones in the obnoxious tie-dye that are really loud, you can't miss us. And then another event that we'll be speaking about is the VR Hockey Team's Hockey Fights Cancer fundraiser. So it's their third year holding this, and it was a resounding success. They raised over $17,000 to donate, and they even invited I believe, former VR alumni of the hockey team to come and do the puck drop. So it was an exciting event. I didn't personally see it, but I've spoken to a couple people about it, and apparently it was an amazing event, and everyone had a great time. And finally, VR Swim and Dive also recently held a special night. This is very near and dear to me. I've been on the swim team since I was in 8th grade. I was very lucky to have been chosen to help swim for them. So they had their senior night on January 7th against Concord. It was a resounding win and a very emotional night. I've known many of them for a very long time, so I'll be sad to see them go, but I wish them initiatives at the high school. On December 7th, We Are Best Buddies held a holiday movie night alongside Bridgewater Middle School. The movie Elf was played for the night in the cafeteria, where students could enjoy pizza donated by Ultimate Pizza with candy, drinks, and chips donated by members of the community. Mrs. McMasters ran the event, and it was a great opportunity for students from both schools to spend time together and make new friends and create memories. On another note, the Hostburg chapter held their CPR informational session on December 19th, and it was a success. Ms. Prothero, Mackenzie Campbell, and myself organized the event, and around 15 students were in attendance from the club, and were able to bring their friends to learn about adult and pediatric non-certifying CPR. And a presentation was held on the steps to evaluate the victim of sudden cardiac arrest, how to approach a situation safely, and where the AEDs are placed around the high school. The Hostburg members have also been working diligently to curate a winter-themed bulletin board to inform students on interesting health facts and debunk common health misconceptions. Thank you so much, and I would like to welcome Sydney to the stand.
Thank you. Welcome up.
Good evening, everyone. On December 17th, the Social Justice Club met for their monthly meeting, of which 55 students attended. Social justice is a group any ER student can sign up for, take part in discussion with other students. Last month's topic covered conflict resolution. Student leaders presented different types of communication styles used during conflict, and provided scenarios for students to discuss and role-play how they would respond. Then, as a whole group, the students considered their experience and any other lessons they took away from it. The next meeting takes place this upcoming Tuesday, February 4th. Students will again have the opportunity to discuss conflict resolution on a deeper level, with a focus on more specific topics that can create emotional responses, while having a chance to continue to act out scenarios and share experiences. Thank you for your time, and good luck to everyone else speaking tonight.
Thank you very much. All right, now we'll move on to school improvement plans. And Mr. Metropoulos, looks like you're up first with the Bridgewater Middle School improvement plan. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thanks for having me. Anybody hear me okay? Thank you. So I'd like to thank members of the Bridgewater Middle School Council, Ms. Furtado, who's our teacher representative, and two parents, Ron Kumar and Ms. Rick, for their feedback on the school improvement plan that we put together. As you know, the school improvement plan is aligned with the district student success plan, and so I'm just going to bring up a couple highlights from the sections that we went through. The first is Safe and Supportive Schools Action Plan. That's much better. Sorry about that. You can yell at me if you can't hear me. I'm just going to hold it. The first of that section, again, Safe and Supportive Schools Action Plan. One of the highlights is developing core values and expectations for student learning. I think it's a real critical piece to what we do as a school. It's sort of a backbone, something that we can rely on. It falls upon not only myself, the administrator, Mr. Carroll, as well, faculty, student input, and family input as well. So we had a faculty meeting where we discussed a few ideas for what those core values could be. We have a student survey out right now, and we're looking forward to getting some feedback from parents and families as well. Moving on to the next section for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment Action Plan. The action that we are going to highlight, development of some data teams. Again, the school administration, as well as our curriculum coordinators for the district, will work with our teacher teams, and during their common planning time, discuss MCAS data as well as iReady data, so that we can then move forward and use that data to inform instruction. The third section, Operations Action Plan. Just me being new to the school, one of the things that I think is really important is just reviewing all safety protocols that we have for the building. And if there are gaps or if there's a need, let's say we have some feedback from fire and police, to incorporate those into our plans, updating them as needed. We want to make sure that we have a crisis team in our building as well, and everybody has the most updated protocols in their classrooms, and they know what to do in case of emergency, but also in support of the health and safety of our everyday. The last section, human capital, we want to focus continuously on professional development for the high-quality instructional materials that we have as a result of the work of the district. So we appreciate those materials, any DEI initiatives that we have, and the evaluation system that is governing us and the work that we do throughout the state. So we do have some professional development time regarding that, and we try to incorporate that regularly as well into our faculty meeting time. So, thank you.
Questions for Mr. Metropolis about the BMS school improvement plan? Ms. Mango, yes.
Thank you for the plan.
Sure.
Okay. Quick question. I was wondering, you mentioned about the student survey for the safety. Is that going to be the measurement to see the progress on that?
So the student survey is for the development of our core values. So it's out there for students. It's about 20 questions that basically ask them about what their experience is like in school, from an academic standpoint as well as a social-emotional standpoint. From there, that information will work together as an administration and other leaders within the building to try to incorporate that into 3 or 4 values that will essentially govern the work that we do as a school. And so anything that we really want to do, we want to bounce back off of our core values. Those are our aspirational thoughts about how we want to run that school. And so when we talk about initiatives, when we talk about things that we want to put in place, the work that teachers are doing, essentially the functions of the school, if they don't align with our core values, we probably don't want to put them in place because those values are based on input from everyone, and we really want to get the input from the students, so that's why we have that survey up.
So then, how will you measure students and staff being more physically, socially, and emotionally supported?
So how we can do a follow-up survey in terms of health and safety. I think that's probably what you're talking about, maybe in a different sphere of the school improvement plan, but we can certainly get a survey out to students as well as families and staff about how they feel about not only their physical safety, but social and emotional safety as well.
What I'm looking for or hoping to see is that once those interventions that you put into place in the plan, how do you test that they worked? And
Sure.
How do these steps make the family? So it sounds like you're open to putting together a survey to ask if these interventions have actually contributed to the goal of making staff and students feel safer.
Sure. I think I'm a little confused, but I think are you talking about updating when I mentioned the operations and action plan, reviewing all safety protocols and developing new protocols as updated or as needed?
So the first thing says safe and supportive schools action plan, and then it articulates within that it says that having student and staff feeling more safe and secure. So that's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay. Sure. I mean, I think the idea of core values, students feel connected to their building. And so in order to find out how that's working, first of all, we have to develop those values. And then we have to articulate them and then build them in and essentially bake them into the school itself. From there, we'll be able to develop rubrics that are associated with each value and then determine, based on feedback from everybody using the rubrics, whether we've met those goals. Does that help? Okay, sorry about that. Sure. Any other questions?
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Loesch.
So just in looking at the first two on your Safe and Supportive Schools Action Plan, PBIS, and your student support team, can we look at more measurable outcomes that are data-driven outcomes?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that second part.
Could we just possibly look at moving towards more data-driven measurable outcomes? Right now you have organized, articulated expectations for behavior in school areas, cafeteria, hallways, etc. Secondly, student plans articulated in meetings and listing tiered interventions and action steps. In both those areas, those are pieces that are part of the process and should be all set upon implementation. I think when we're looking at measuring progress, we need to look at the response to the PBIS model and the tiered interventions, or how many students may be accessing them at a time.
Sure. I think that's a good point. We also need to have that first step of actually articulating those items. So absolutely, definitely a follow-up or an assessment of whether those items are in fact working. I completely understand that. Any other questions?
Anything else for Ms. Metropolis? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Metropolis.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it's my first year there, so I appreciate it. It's nice to meet all of you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Mrs. Westell from Merrill, you're up next to tell us about the Merrill School Improvement Plan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee, Superintendent Powers, and members of the BR community. The Merrill Elementary School Improvement Plan is aligned with the district's Student Success Plan. This plan was developed in collaboration with the school administrators, staff, and our families. I would like to take this time to thank the members of the school council who assisted in the creation of this plan: Katrina Fisher, Jen Rodriguez, Ellen Fritz, and Colin Swart. I thank you for your time. As you know, the district's Student Success Plan, which drives our school improvement plan, is built upon 4 pillars. Those pillars are safe and supportive schools, curriculum, instruction and assessment, operations, and human capital. Although we have multiple school-based action plans built into this plan, I would just like to highlight one from each section this evening. Under safe and supported schools, we are continuing to focus on improving our multi-tiered systems of supports for students. This includes weekly grade-level SEL lessons facilitated by our school adjustment counselors and school psychologists in order to foster school learning of age-appropriate social skills and then carry them over into the school environment. Under curriculum, instruction, and assessment, we are continuing to focus in improving the implementation of our newly purchased instructional materials in math and English language arts, which includes the Envisions math program and Wit and Wisdom ELA program. One way we are doing this is we accomplish this through weekly grade-level common planning time to support teacher collaboration and the implementation of best teaching practices. Under operations, we continue to review our security and training systems and procedures within our school. Under human capital, we continue to utilize the Wellness Committee to address the physical and emotional wellness of both students and staff. That concludes my highlights for this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for Ms. Westell? Ms. Mayfield?
My question is the same. How will you measure that these action steps that you've articulated here are making progress towards those ultimate goals?
So seeing that our students are K-1, it's a little bit different as far as how we measure that. We are very involved with PBIS, and what we're doing at Merrill School right now, we have a lot of things that we're implementing, and because we have the school psychologist and the school adjustment counselors in the classrooms teaching those lessons, we're able to get a very good read on what the kids, who they are and what they're doing. We also have something that we call the DESER scores, which is something more of a data-driven. So parents in kindergarten fill that out for us. So it's basically social emotional from their perspective. Then we have the teachers fill that out as well. So you have 2 different perspectives with that. And then once we get to know the students, and if there's a problem arises or we have a concern, we look at those scores and we see what they indicated to us initially. Then the teachers then take a deeper dive into that survey, and then they fill it out a little bit more. And then we bring the child to child study, which we look at. Then we provide an intervention, and then we look to see if those interventions are working for those individual students.
Other questions for Ms. Westell? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Westell.
Thank you.
And I will note, as I always do, guys bring up your school improvement plans. I started on the Williams school improvement plan a long time ago. We'll leave it at that. All right, moving on, we have administrative and school committee reports. Budget subcommittee report, Ms. King.
Thank you. On Tuesday, January 21st, the Budget Subcommittee met at 4:30 in the Superintendent's Conference Room. In attendance were Mr. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. Martelli, Superintendent Powers, Assistant Superintendent Barry, Mrs. Babalola, the Director of Business Services, Ms. Robichaud, the District Treasurer, Ms. Healy, Director of Human Resources, Ms. Jennifer Argenti, the Fiscal Assistant for Business Services, Mrs. McDougall, our Recording Secretary, and myself. Mrs. Davenport was not able to attend as she was ill that evening. The first discussion that we had was regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget. We discussed particularly the base account. As the committee knows, we've discussed this now for over a year. That revolving account has not been self-sustaining. The base program for before and after school care, summer base, vacation base, and pre-K base. That has not been self-sustaining, and in the past year and a half, it has been running in the red. So we have been going over reports, and last year we did increase prices. We had the business office run reports for us to see where we were as of January, if in fact the implementation of the registration fees and the different things that we have done, including the price increase, has helped to close that gap and make that self-sustaining. After review of the reports, I do want to note Ms. Argenti, am I saying it correctly? She ran reports which really gave us a good idea of where we were to date and historical data, so I do want to thank her for running that for us and attending that meeting. Mr. Powers went over the base reports with us for each program individually, showing the revenue and expenses to date, enrollment, and historical data. With the following implementations for this school year, the program is making strides to close that deficit. Things that they have done to work on that is the implementation of registration fees, increase in the fees that we approved last school year for this school year, the base staff monitoring and adjusting staffing based upon attendance. I believe Joelle and Silva has done a great job in working on that to make sure that we're not overstaffing or understaffing, and checking attendance as well. They also implemented an online digital monthly calendar to have families sign up in advance, foregoing a prior paper calendar, which made it very difficult for the program to track how many students were attending each day and each week, and to plan and staff for that as well. Also, the base staff did collect outstanding balances from last year, totaling up to $15,000. Upon review of the reports, the following programs, however, were still running into a deficit. The summer base specifically, and the pre-K programs. After discussion and review, the following recommendations were made. The business office, we had a lengthy discussion about the separation of the base school year program and the base summer program. It was very difficult for the business office to track the summer program to see if in fact that income versus expenses, how far off we were. As it is now, because it's in the summer, we are collecting fees in one fiscal year and paying in the next fiscal year. So the business office is going to create a separate revolving account. That does not need a vote by the school committee, but she did tell us that they were going to be doing that, Mrs. Babalola. That way that one program can be tracked easily for revenue and expenses. And know that that particular one is straddling those two fiscal years, so we can keep track of that, especially when Mr. Powers is working on the budget. And then the base school year will be its own separate revolving account as well to track. The RMAC program we also had a discussion on. As we know, when we closed the Pay-to-Ride program, one of the effects of that were there are many students that did not have anywhere to go since they were not able to take the bus. They needed a before or after school care because parents were relying on that. The Park and Rec on the Rainham side was full at the time, So those students that were displaced needed a program. BASE took that program on, and it became the RMAC program, which is the Rainham side of the program. However, this program, although it is still running several years later, we looked at the numbers and the attendance. There's only about 11 to 12 students in that program per month. So even doing minimal staffing, it is still not sustaining the amount of staffing revenue versus the income coming in. I'm sorry, staffing expenses, income coming in. So we did have a discussion. Mr. Powers is going to speak to the Rainham Park and Rec and see if they can absorb those students by the end of the school year. And hopefully next year we will not have to run that program as it won't be needed. No action was taken on that. That will be a discussion with Mr. Powers and Mr. McRae at Rainham Park and Rec. We did also look at the pre-K program, which to date is still running in a deficit. However, it is making strides to not become a deficit. But we did have a long discussion that since the other programs at the other schools for before and after care for school year are actually making up the income at a rate of, I think it was $8,000 per month, we're hoping that that program by the end of the year will be self-sustaining and cover the pre-K. We did not want to make any recommendations to raise pre-K again for this year. Bearing that in mind, the only program then that we did want to make any adjustments to would be the summer base. We did have also another discussion after reviewing the reports. The summer base was still not making enough strides to break even. And the cost of summer camp in the area, we did look at last year, and we are way underpriced, but we did not want to raise it too much at one time last year. Also, because we're not making enough money in that program, we're not able to allocate any funds for the base summer program to make any purchases for expenses or supplies rather during the summer. I think last year we only allocated $2,000 in that program. So hopefully if we do increase the price slightly, that will give them some enough fees to be able to purchase supplies and run that program for those students. Because there are enough students enrolled and that rely on that program as well. Bearing all that in mind, we do have 3 motions related to that program. The first motion that I would like to make, Mr. Chairman, is a motion to increase the base summer camp full-day fee to $38 per day, previously $35 per day, to begin July 1st, 2025, which would be the next fiscal year for this coming summer.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Loesch. Discussion, any further discussion on this case? Mr. Loesch. Mr. Dameron.
I heard that you didn't want to, well, the subcommittee did not want to make an astronomical increase or a big increase. What was the justification to increase it just by $3 instead of going up to $40 where it was $35 prior?
It was a 10% increase.
Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. King?
Just want to follow up on that loose question. Was there an analysis done to determine that that $3 increase is enough to cover the financial needs?
Based on the price right now, it is closing the gap. It is not enough to fully close that gap. The 10% increase should almost cover the gap based on the price, the revenue reports that I did on my own. It is still not going to, but the program overall, including summer and school year, I think Mr. Powers said at the end, we should, what was the final number? So right now, both programs together, we have a $60,000 deficit. Based on an $8,000, sorry, I'm losing my words right now. We're making up $8,000 per month by the end of the school year, we should be almost there. But for that one program that we're trying to separate out, it is not currently, but overall it should be. I'm hoping with the 10% increase, it'll be enough to almost close that gap for that program itself. But we did not want to raise the price too much because those families are relying on that because they're going to work or they need summer care. And I believe last year we raised it at 10% as well.
Anything further, Ms. Mayfield?
And in light of what you said about the parents, will the communication clearly explain the reasons for the increase and how the funds will be used?
Yes, of course. We've already had parents start asking about summer programming, so we want to be able to get that information out as soon as possible.
Anything further on the base? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? It's unanimous, thank you. Continuing, Ms. King.
Thank you. The second motion related to that would be, I would make a motion to increase the base vacation week full day fee to $38 per day from $35 per day to begin July 2025. This also just aligns with the summer base full day, which was $35, to increase that vacation week day.
Second by Mr. Loesch. Ms. King, this is just to keep the rates consistent for February vacation, et cetera, right?
Yes, February and April vacations.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Continuing, Ms. King.
And then the third related motion would be, I would make a motion to increase the base afternoon early release day fee to $30 per day from the current $27 per day to begin July 2025.
Second, motion by Ms. King, second by Mr. DeMarino. Discussion. Ms. Mayfield.
Is that increase to address a deficit as well?
Yes, so the half day and the vacations, those are all included in that summer base kind of program. So we're just trying to make sure those are aligned. The other programs, we're not raising prices for this regular school year before and after and pre-K.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Continuing, Ms. King.
Thank you. So that's everything for base. We will continue to monitor that program and see by the end of the year how we're looking, and then project for next year with these prices what that will have the program. So I'm hoping in the next 3 months do another report out and check on that as well. The next thing we discussed was the IT surplus. Mr. Powers indicated that Mr. Shantz would like to declare IT items as surplus to properly dispose of them, and said items will be recycled free of charge to the district by upcycle. I have a list of items, and you should have received that in your agenda as well. Accordingly, I would make a motion to approve the following IT items as surplus. 95 NEC phones from BMS, 25 security cameras from BMS, 32 network switches, 20 iPad second generations, 25 computers, 2 servers, 45 Chromebooks, and 80 access points.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Martelli. Further discussion, anybody? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Ms. King?
Thank you. The next item that we discussed, Mr. Powers indicated that he recently retired 2 Bobcats from the facilities department when their lease expired. They are used for general maintenance within the district and snow removal. The new lease contract is a 5-year lease for 2 new Bobcats to replace the retired ones. As this is a more than 3-year contract, the school committee must approve it. The cost over the 5 years is $120,167.94, and these funds are already budgeted within the facilities operation budget. But we do need to approve it as it is a 5-year contract. Accordingly, I would make a motion to allow the superintendent to enter into a 60-month lease for 2 Bobcats totaling $120,167.94 with Bobcat of Cape Cod.
Second by Mr. Loesch. All those, discussion? Mr. Demarino.
The 2 Bobcats that were retired, how old were they? Yeah. So I understand that it's a lease, but was it 5 years, 10 years? How long was the lease?
I'd have to get you that exact age. I do know when we costed it out, we had the ability to purchase those 2 Bobcats at the end of the lease. But because it was several years old, what we would purchase them for just didn't seem to be, cost effective. That's why we went to a longer lease with new equipment. But in terms of the exact age of those 2, I can get that information for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ms. Mayfield.
Were quotes received from more than one vendor or another brand evaluated?
Yes, we did explore options. We explored continuing on with our current leasing company versus Bobcat of Cape Cod, which is actually through Bobcat of Bridgewater. Bobcat of Bridgewater just recently opened. It's on Route 18. One of the challenges we were having with our current provider was that they were out of Connecticut, I believe. And so we weren't necessarily always getting the immediate service that we needed. So in terms of weighing cost, also weighing customer service, we decided to go with a local vendor.
Thank you. Further questions? Ms. Mayfield.
What's the rationale behind leasing instead of purchasing outright?
The cost of purchase is fairly significant, and obviously by leasing, we know that we're at the end of this lease, we'll be entering into an extension to provide new equipment versus purchasing them now, where in 5 years we have 5-year-old equipment that we would have to continue on with. So again, it's just the efficiency of it versus purchasing that equipment up front for a significantly higher cost versus leasing that over 5 years.
Thank you. Further questions?
Just another quick follow-up.
Yes.
The quote that cost is for the entire 5 years, or is it annual?
Ms. Good?
It's over the course of the 5 years.
Further questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Anything further on budget?
We did just, the December 10th, 2024 minutes for budget were approved, and the budget minutes of the joint meeting with the towns of December 3rd were approved as well. The only other thing we did discuss was a fiscal year 2026 discussion regarding Mr. Powers' preliminary budget, which he will present later on. As the tentative governor's budget had been presented that day of January 22nd. So he will go into that, so I'm not going to get into that yet. I will still use them there. The only other thing I do want to remark on that, after Mr. Powers presents tonight, the budget subcommittee will meet several times over the course of February and March to revise the budget before it's presented at the March 12th, 2025 public hearing, and then to the school committee on March 26, 2025 to accept before we send it to the towns. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Demarino, the Policy Subcommittee report.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbons. I'll try to be short and sweet since I know I'm right before the big event. On January 15th, the Policy Subcommittee met in the Superintendent's Conference Room. The attendants were myself, Mr. Roach, Mrs. Davenport, Superintendent Powers, Assistant Superintendent Barry, and Secretary, Mrs. McDougal. 2 items were on the agenda. The first was student assessment policy development. At the last school committee meeting, Mr. Powers spoke about how DESE is leaving it up to really the districts to figure out how to assess whether a student should graduate or receive a certificate of attendance and not providing much guidance on that. Miss Watson was also in attendance. They discussed what they have been doing in order to prepare for this, whether it will be something that's put into the student handbook or whether the school committee itself will create a policy. We've been speaking with other districts to see how they are approaching this, and all the other districts are pretty much at the same point. We did discuss about possibly looking at what was done back in 2002, which was the last time that MCAS determined whether or not a student should graduate. We tabled any policy creation so that Ms. Watson and Mr. Powers could continue to gather information and then report back to the subcommittee. The other item on the agenda was a possible policy creation by a member of the school committee in which they were looking for a policy about different types of agreements that the district entered into. There were several questions. I, as the chair, reached out to the member for clarification, and where I unfortunately received any, I did not, we as a subcommittee didn't feel it was fair to take any action on that without the member being able to answer the questions. As such, that was tabled for the next committee. Other than that, the minutes were approved, and that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. DiMarino. That having been said, we're going to move on to new business, the superintendent's FY26 preliminary budget presentation. Just so folks understand, Mr. Powers is going to present his preliminary budget this evening. His hope and my expectation is at the end of this, the school committee will adopt the budget as their own and refer it to the budget subcommittee, as Ms. King has already suggested. And she gave the timeline before of a March 12th public hearing, at which point there will be plenty of time for anybody to be heard on the budget. That is a public hearing. It's meant to get public input to help the school committee understand where everybody is and what they want to see or not see, etc. So that's a very important meeting to put on your calendar. And then, if all goes well in the public hearing, the school committee will meet on March 26th to vote on a final budget to send to both towns for them to act on in the spring. So with that, Mr. Powers can take the podium and the school committee can go sit up front so you can see the presentation.
Mr. Chair, I just have one question.
Yes.
Or comment. I just, especially since we have a very large group here, the March 12th is a public hearing. It is not like a regular school committee meeting. It is more interactive. At that time, we will solicit questions and comments from the public. So it's not just a regular school committee meeting where we cannot respond. So if you have comments and questions and have need to bring those to the public hearing, because we can answer questions. We do want feedback before we present a final budget. So
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee, our state and local officials, our distinguished staff, and our administrative team, and certainly our parents and caregivers. Welcome this evening. Your presence speaks volume about your commitment to the students and staff of the Bridgewater Rainier Regional School District, and for that I'm grateful. So thank you for being here this evening. Can everybody hear me okay with the microphone? Do I need to make any adjustments? We're good. I am here tonight to present the FY26 preliminary budget. As you have heard, this is the first round of the budget discussion. at the end of this evening. Hopefully, school committee will vote to approve and adopt this budget as their own. And then obviously, as you've heard, changes will be made throughout the spring if needed. Just to provide a quick agenda of this evening, really what I'm hoping to be able to do is give you a quick overview of the district, share with you who we are and what we're about, talk a little bit about the budget process. I know we held a parent information night last week, so I want to be able to share some of that information again with any new parent that may be here, or certainly some of our staff members that, for a lot of individuals, whether it be parents, caregivers, staff members, you may not have had to worry about the budget before. And so your in-depth knowledge of that may not be as, what we'd like it to be. And so tonight is an opportunity for us to share what we know about the budget. And then obviously presenting some concrete numbers to you for FY26, and then talk about next steps, but some of those have already been shared with you. Just a little bit about the district. You may or may not know, but the Bridgewater-Rainham Regional School District is the second largest regional school district in the Commonwealth. We are behind Wachusett. Wachusett is currently at 6,557 students, and coming in third is Acton-Boxborough at 5,055. So we are a district currently of 5,682 students. We operate 7 school buildings, but we have 8 schools, and we educate students in preschool through postgrad, so 12 plus. This is just an overview of our current enrollment. So makeup of our 5,682 students. You can see on the left-hand side that student race and ethnicity, and then obviously on the right is selected populations. I'll give you a minute to just, I certainly won't go through every one of them, but just give you a minute to review and digest. Obviously, when you look at the makeup of our students, our demographic information, and then our selected populations, those numbers are, changing every day. They're certainly changing from year over year. And so what I tried to do is take the opportunity to actually look back a decade ago. What did Bridgewater-Rainham look like 10 years ago? So looking back at the 14-15 school year compared to where we are now. And you can obviously see, the district has changed. Certainly I would say it's changed for the better. We are a more diverse school system. We embrace that. You embrace that on a daily basis. And it makes us that much more special. Selected populations, and I'll just kind of walk through this. So selected populations looks at our student, obviously, enrollment, so our 5682, and then they break it down into some more defined categories. The first one being high needs. Now, high needs is really a combination of these other selected populations. I'll get back to high needs in a minute. But to start with our English language learners, you can see back in 14-15, roughly 2%, a little under 2% of our student population was an English language learner. You can see now we're up to 5%. So we started, these numbers are obviously based on our October 1 enrollment. So as of October 1, we had 284 L students. We now have 304 since October 1. So that percent certainly would continue to increase. Our students with first language is not English. You can see the increase there. Our low-income students, actually in 14-15, it was a different category, economically disadvantaged, but certainly measured basically the same information. So it's gone from 11.9 to 27.8% of our students are considered low income. And our students with disability, obviously 14%, which would have equated to about 742 students back in 14-15. Now in 24-25, we're a little over 20% of our students are students with disabilities, which is roughly 1,100, over 1,100 students. So we're about plus 405, a little over 400 in terms of our students with disabilities during that 10-year time. I think one of the areas that we continue to struggle with is looking at, when you look at that increased number, and certainly even with our L population, is being able to keep pace with the student population, making sure that we're adding additional staff. And so that has been a challenge for us over the last 10 years. But it's something that obviously we're committed to because we want to make sure that our students are receiving the highest quality of education, and we're committed to that, and I think we'll see that this evening. Let me just go back real quick. So just a point of reference for the high needs category. As I shared, that high needs category is reflective of those other selected populations. All this information is submitted to DESE
October 1, and they, for lack of a better term, certify it and publish it. They have not released the high needs category for 24-25. What I will tell you is, as you see on this next slide, last year we were at about 40% high needs. So again, a significant percent of our student population. What we estimate this year is that's gone up to 42%, but that has not been certified by DESE, so you see the asterisk. And same thing with our staffing. But this is just a quick snapshot of our district. Really what this is reflective of is our total enrollment over the last 10 years. So you'll see the darker blue bar is our enrollment numbers. As you can imagine, the lighter blue bar is staffing, and then the percentage of high needs. And you can see that significantly has changed over the course of time. And I share that with you, again, not that we don't welcome all of our students, we certainly do, but as I mentioned, when our percentage or enrollment of high needs student goes up, that does require a significant amount of service, and so we want to make sure that we're keeping pace with that. Again, you see an asterisk with staff numbers. DESE has not certified those, but again, as you know, we are down certified staff, and so what we anticipate based on what we submitted was 333, but certainly that number could change. So just a point of caution there. And then, like I said, for the high needs category, we're estimating it about 42%. That's a significant, we're not too far away from half of our students being considered high needs. Again, just as a point of reference, when you look back at 14-15, that would basically be about 1,300 students would be considered high needs. Currently, right now, we're at 2386 in terms of our students that are considered high needs. That's over 1,000 students that have changed in that 10 years that are now in that category. I do also want to point out, as I mentioned, these numbers are based on October 1. Our enrollment consistently, we go back to last year, and this happened again this year, our enrollment consistently has increased from October 1. And so when we look at the students that have enrolled in our district since October 1, compared to those students that have withdrawn for whatever reason, we have a net increase of 57 students. So again, 2+ classes worth of students have enrolled in our district since October 1, and we have not added classroom teachers. And we saw something similar last year with that same trend. The number was actually higher. The net increase last year after October 1, until I gave my budget presentation in January, was actually net 98. So really almost 4 classes worth of students. That's a significant increase from October 1. And we're seeing increases, throughout the district at the various levels. It's not just one. All of our schools, I should say the majority of our schools, are seeing increases. Bridgewater Middle School, 1-year increase, 2-year increase, 2-year increase of 86 students. The high school has seen a 2-year increase of 97 students. La Liberty is plus 42 over those 2 years. Merrill has seen a decline in enrollment, as has Mitchell. Merrill's minus 42, Mitchell is minus 26 over those 2 years. And again, that's including preschool for Mitchell through grade 2. Rainham Middle School, minus 15 students. And then our third period day is minus 4 students. And Williams is plus 62. And as you saw from the numbers, we're over that 2-year trend, we're plus 200 for those. So again, this is reflective of the students that are sitting in our classrooms, certainly not all the students that we're responsible for. As you know, we have students that attend out of district placements, and so certainly our overall enrollment, what they would consider our foundation enrollment, would certainly be higher than the 5682. Those are the students that we're currently educating in our district. Again, a little bit more about what we're about. Here's our mission, vision, and equity statement. I think you should be familiar with these by now, but if not, I'll certainly give you a moment to take a look. I think what should stand out for you is, you consistently hear me talk about and see it in writing, is that we are about excellence in education for all our students. And when we say all, we really want to commit to that we do mean all students, and we want our district to be reflective of that. We want our beliefs, practices to reflect that, and we want our students to feel that as well. Obviously, everything we do is based off our student success plan. As you know, we're in our latest version of that, which is just started in 2023, and will go through 2028. But the 4 main areas of our student success plan, which serves as our district strategic plan: safe and supportive schools. We want to make sure our students are physically and socially, emotionally safe at school. Obviously, curriculum, instruction, and assessment, that's what we're all about, right? That's teaching and learning. That's why we're here.
Operations, so looking at IT facilities, making sure that we're providing learning environments for our students and staff that meet the needs and meet the changing landscape of education. And then obviously human capital. We really want to make a strong investment in the people that shape the future of our students. So we want to make sure that we're providing high quality professional development to you, that we're providing resources and support to you, and certainly making sure that we're paying attention to your wellness and overall well-being. Hence our day-to-day, our staff wellness fair. Just an overview of the budget process. It really does start, I have to say we probably start a little bit earlier than October, but really October is kind of our kickoff point where we start asking our department heads and principals and other staff to start submitting their requests. We start talking about personnel for the future, and then obviously goods and services that they may need. Obviously you can see here we are in January presenting the preliminary budget to you, to the school committee. And then obviously in March, as Ms. King mentioned, we'll have our public hearing and the school committee will vote to adopt the budget. And then in May, that the funding for the budgets are approved by the Bridgewater Town Council and the Town of Rainham voters. And so those meetings take place in May. Just to kind of, again, give some context and background information, when we start talking about building our budget, there's really four main sources of funding. Now, there's obviously additional sources, but when we talk about the four main ones, these are the four that I wanted to review with you this evening. Chapter 70 state aid, obviously I'm sure it's a term you're familiar with, but I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. Obviously we have our local aid, the funding provided by the towns, the town of Bridgewater and the town of Rainham. Chapter 71 is state transportation reimbursement for regional school districts, and then district contribution. So the state determines an adequate spending level for each school district, which they refer to as the foundation budget. And obviously the foundation budget is supported by Chapter 70, which is the state or the Commonwealth's plan for ensuring adequate and equitable funding for districts across the state. And then obviously local contributions. Local contributions from both towns, the state determines a minimum contribution, and that's based on the community's wealth. They take a look at your property values as well as the income of residents. I want to kind of point your attention to these three boxes right here. It just gives you a little bit more information. So as I mentioned, the state determines what the foundation budget should look like. So what they've determined for Bridgewater Rainham is that our foundation budget should be $81 million, $81,321,445. They also then determine an equitable share for the towns to contribute. So that again is the minimum contribution. So between the two towns of Bridgewater and Rainham, their contributions would be $47,111,455. And that leaves state funding of $34,209,990. And so what they look at is the foundation budget, what the towns are going to be required to support the district with, and then what the state will make up, and that's the Chapter 70 funding. What I will tell you is we have been fortunate. Cities and towns are only required to contribute the minimum contribution. They don't have to go over. We have been fortunate that both towns, when you look historically, have given more than what has been required, and so we're thankful for that. We're thankful for their partnership. For example, we look back at FY25, minimum contribution would have been $44 million plus, almost $45 million. We received from both towns $54 million. So you can see that they are providing additional resources to us. And so to both towns and town officials here, I do thank you for that. You'll see somewhat of the conundrum that we found ourselves in because of state funding. That does, at times when state funding is not what we need it to be, does place a burden on the towns. Regional transportation, so as you know, we are reimbursed, or you might not know, we're reimbursed for transporting students over 1.5 miles. This does not include transportation for field trips, athletics, special education funding, special education transportation. Chapter 71 just focuses on that regional transportation of students that live over 1.5 miles. When the district rolled, when the state rolled out the Chapter 71 program, it really was to be an incentive for local towns to regionalize. There's a lot of information out there from the state. They're always encouraging communities to regionalize with their neighbors to try to cut costs. And what they promised initially was that there would be 100% reimbursement. Now there is a small tiny asterisk there that says, with funding, conditional on funding available. Unfortunately for us, reimbursement has never been at 100%. You can see I included the last few fiscal years for you. So FY23, we're at 79, a little over 79% reimbursement. 24 is 86, almost 87. FY25 is 84% reimbursement. And what they're projected right now for FY26 will be 95, which obviously is a significant increase. So we do appreciate that. We've been kind of told to be cautiously optimistic. That may not hold once it goes through the various legislative bodies. That could change, but right now the governor's number has us at 95% reimbursement. The district also contributes to the budget. As you know, we charge fees for facility rentals. We charge fees for athletics. We charge fees for parking. So we're always trying to, unfortunately, we hate to collect those fees, but you can see when we're in, difficult budget seasons, those fees actually play a role. We do receive Medicaid reimbursement. That is something that, some of the services we provide our students are eligible under Medicaid, so we can submit for reimbursement. Obviously, we have investment of funds, so interest earned from that, so money, essentially in our savings account. If we had that, we earn interest. Miscellaneous receipts, so again, money that wasn't necessarily budgeted for to come in. It could be that something carried over from a prior fiscal year. We may get a rebate, something like that. Along those lines, that would be a miscellaneous receipt. Circuit breaker reimbursement. Circuit breaker is obviously special education reimbursement. Some of the costs associated with special education are reimbursable, and so that's what circuit breaker reimbursement is. And then E&D, which is excess and deficiencies. That is what you would probably commonly hear as free cash for a town. For regional school districts, we don't have what we refer to as free cash. We have excess and deficiencies. So that would be the equivalent of our rainy day savings account. And by statute, we're only allowed to have a certain amount in there. We can't exceed percentage in relationship to our budget. So it's not something, and that's something that we use each year to try to offset the assessments that are sent to the town. Last year, that was about $2 million we used out of that. But again, something that we're concerned about, and can we keep pace with that? And eventually that money may not be there for us to use to offset future budgets. So again, the FY26 budget, as we start that process, principals and district administrators were asked to submit budget requests for a needs-based budget. Now that term needs-based could have several meanings and maybe one that you might be familiar with, but the way we're looking at a needs-based budget is not that, well, of course we need to be able to turn the lights on, we need to be able to heat the buildings, and we need our students to have papers and, paper and pencil. Those are needs, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a needs-based budget that's aligned to our student success plan, aligned to our mission, and ensures that our students have positive outcomes. It's what we need to be a high-performing school district. And that budget, the budget that I'm going to present tonight is reflective of that. It's based on feedback that we have heard from staff, from our caregivers, and in some cases from our students. You could hear Rachel Ford, who spoke earlier. I've had a chance to meet with some of our students, and so getting their feedback as well. We want to make sure that all of our students, the 5,682, have positive outcomes, that they have excellence in education. And, unfortunately that comes with a cost, the cost of doing business of education. When we build our budgets are built by series. Again, I won't read through these, but just to give some context. The 1,000 series, that's essentially central office, so the superintendent's office, the business office, human resources, any expense associated with school committee. 2,000 instructional services, as you can imagine. That's our teachers, teaching staff, support staff, goods, supplies, materials, textbooks, anything really teaching and learning related. 3,000, that's where we get into transportation. So our school bus transportation, special education transportation, and then obviously health services, so our nursing staff. Operations and maintenance, as it states, that would be our facilities and maintenance department, so costs associated with that. Fixed costs and benefits, again, that would be health insurance and leasing of equipment.
Asset acquisition, so this is capital. So anytime we do a major capital project, a building renovation, building construction, buy a piece of equipment that has a larger cost associated with it, it would be charged to the 7,000 series. Debt retirement services, so that's debt that we have on our buildings. Any type of project that we've done, any type of borrowing that we've done, whether it be a roof replacement, or certainly our new school construction, or any of our buildings in the district that have had something done to them where we've had to borrow, that would be charged to the 8,000 series. Just you'll see in a minute, just to kind of preview, the 7,000 and 8,000 series, those are pulled out. So what you're going to see in a minute is that we actually look at the 1,000 through 5,000, and then the 9,000 as our operational budget. That's the cost for us to do business every day. The debt is obviously something that we know each year that we're going to have to pay, and then capital varies year by year, and so that was something that in consultation with the towns, the way our capital is funded by both towns is not included in our operating budget. It's a separate item, and so you'll see it in a minute pulled out. So here's the preliminary budget. I did include for you what FY24 looks like. You can see FY25 approved, and then obviously FY26 initial. Just kind of talk a little bit about these numbers. Obviously, the number here you see for the first subtotal, the $109,778,235 and change. We realize that's a significant increase. But that is reflective of our needs-based budget. How can we become a high-performing school district, higher than we already are, in ensuring positive outcomes for our kids? It's giving us everything that we have determined, from feedback from you, our own needs assessment, everything that we've determined to meet our changing demographics, our changing enrollment, the changing needs of our students. And so, although that operating budget is a significant change, over 20% increase from the prior year, what's important to note is that when we start to look back at FY24 and we start to look back at FY25, our initial budgets during those years are significantly higher as well. Because what we're saying is this is what we need, and unfortunately, whether it be funding from the state, funding from the towns, haven't been able to match our needs, and so we've had to reduce that. When I look back at FY24, our initial ask was 82 positions. We initially cut that down to 29. And of those 29, we, as you know, we certainly didn't add 29 positions in FY24. When I look at FY25, what we asked for last year was 66 positions. As you know, we weren't able to get any of those 66, and unfortunately, we lost 24. So this year, my ask to the school committee and to the community is significant. But really what I'm trying to do is get us back to at least even, the restoration of those 24, the equivalent of those 24 positions, and then also including those positions that we've asked for. And as I go through this presentation, what you're going to see is that I've tried to give a position status. So is it a new position? Is it something that was previously requested? Or was it eliminated in FY25? The majority of our positions are going to either be eliminated into FY25 or previously requested. Again, going back, some positions have been asked for multiple years. Unfortunately, we just haven't been able to put them in, but that doesn't mean that we don't need them, that our students don't deserve them. And so when I look this year at the position asked, we're approximately 91 positions. Now again, 91 can seem significant, but if you think back to what we've been asking for, plus getting those 24 back, that really brings us right to that number. What I'd like to do is try to go by series and give you an overview. So I can show you the breakdown by series, the increase, and then obviously kind of what makes up that difference. So first in the 1,000 series, again, administration. So the central office, superintendent's office, business office, HR, costs associated with school committee. Some of those cost drivers also are technology, IT licenses are also factored into the 1,000 series. So first and foremost, the cost of some of our IT licenses have gone up. One of the significant drivers there is that our antivirus subscription is due to be renewed. And so looking at that cost of almost $70,000 plus. And then, so that's, significant cost. We're looking to add 2 positions back to the central office, one being restoring one position that we lost, which was, the business office. We also actually lost a special education position that we're trying to make up currently with grant funding because it's a much needed position, but another office assistant in the special education department, and then looking to add increased staff in the human resources department. So between the increase in technology, obviously the increase in positions, certainly doesn't add 100% up to $386,000, but when you understand the cost of goods and services going up, we also increased our legal fees because we were in negotiations, and so when we are actively negotiating, that obviously we have our attorney there to represent us, and those fees go up. So knowing that we're in the midst of that, that fee increased as well. The 2000 series, here's where you're going to see your significant change. Again, looking from FY25 to FY26, it's roughly a $9.3 million difference. So first and foremost, we do have contractual obligations that we have to fulfill. Again, the 2000 series makes up, a good portion of that is obviously our people. And so there are contractual obligations that we have to fulfill. We obviously want to look at our goods, services, supplies. Even going back to FY24, we've significantly reduced our supplies and materials going back to FY24, and then we obviously had to do it again last year in FY25. So looking to increase that by almost $1 million. The one-to-one Chromebook program that we have instituted for our students, there's a cost associated with that. Thankfully, Mr. Shantz was able to secure some grant funding last year. There was no cost to the district, but roughly the annual cost for Chromebook replacements is about $375,000. Obviously, looking at 16 positions. Now, what I'll say there is when I refer to losing 24 last year, obviously not all of those 24 positions were teaching positions. So of those 24, 16 fell into the 2000 series. You'll see some of those other positions, like in the 1000 series, bringing back the business office assistant. And so it's restoring 16 positions that we lost in FY25, and then obviously looking to add additional positions, 72 additional positions. Here are some of the positions that we're looking to either bring back that are new requests or been previously requested. And so you can see if it was eliminated in FY25, it may not necessarily been as a result of a layoff. Some of these positions were open or were able to eliminate and not fill them due to retirements or resignations or leave of absences. But what we're asking for going forward is obviously the restoration of the grade 1 position at Merrill. We do see the benefit of having ESPs in our kindergarten classroom. We've gotten very positive feedback over the years from our kindergarten teachers, from parents, and so we'd like to be able to replicate that at the first grade level. Again, this is something that we've asked for before. We'd like to be able to bring back our interventionist positions. These were key positions for us during COVID. They were all grant funded, and we knew that unfortunately that was going to expire. There was a position that we asked for going into FY25, and unfortunately we were not able to bring them on board, but we do see the significant impact that they had. And so bringing back one and a half between Merrill and La Liberty, there would be 3 interventionists, so 1.5 at Merrill. We did not fill the assistant principal position between Merrill and La Liberty, and certainly we want to make sure that we have enough administrative support for our students, for our staff, and I think we're feeling that not having that position there. At La Liberty, obviously restoring a grade 2 position. I know we had some internal moves to be able to make up for that, so essentially restoring the 1 position that we lost at La Liberty. Again, bringing back the interventionist, and then increasing our ESP support at La Liberty for our students. At Rainham Middle School, again, unfortunately, we're not able to keep all of our grade 5 and grade 6 teachers, so returning those positions. Bringing back the interventionists at Rainham Middle School, and then also adding unified arts teachers. When we look at the numbers right now of when our students go to unified arts at Rainham Middle School, some of those classes could be upwards of 35. And so looking to add staff, for our students to be able to bring those class sizes. And I think what you're going to see is a common theme This is some of these positions that were lost is just to get us back to baseline, but obviously some of these other positions are to, move us ahead. And also, most of these target class size. When you look at, you've heard numbers, you've seen numbers. Again, averages. So we know we have classes that are plus 30. When we look at K-8, especially on the Bridgewater side, we're closer to 30 than we are on the Rainham side, but Rainham is still significant. Averages of 26, 27, so obviously some classes are higher. We know some classes might be lower. High school's a little bit more difficult to get a true class size average, just because of its offerings. Some of our electives may be lower, some of our electives may be higher. And so when Mr. Watson and I kind of we take a look at enrollment, we go through the major content areas. Some of those classes again are 30 plus. Some classes have an average of about 25. Again, we do have electives that have smaller enrollments, but certainly I think we'd all agree anything we can do to lower class size regardless of the level. I think as a parent myself, when my kids were younger, and I think the parents in the audience would feel this way, it's all about the grade your child is in. And so if your child's in first grade, you want low class size. But now as you move up and you have older students and you have students that are at the high school, you want low class size for them as well. And so we know there's an impact with low class size. And so everything we're doing tonight is reflective of that. When we look on the Bridgewater side, at Mitchell, restoring that grade 2 position that again we did not fill because of a retirement, but that position was eliminated in FY25. Replicating the ESPs in kindergarten to first grade. Increasing our social emotional support at Mitchell by adding a school adjustment counselor. This is a new request. Again, bringing back the interventionist positions. The same at Williams, restoring the interventionist position. We had actually increasing the number of interventionists. Increasing the number of ESPs, again, to provide support for our students. Bridgewater Middle School, bringing back that interventionist position that we previously requested and weren't able to keep because of grant funding. And then we did have 2 teachers last year retire from Bridgewater Middle School, so looking to fulfill those teachers as well. Again, we weren't able to fill those classes, so they were eliminated in FY25. At the high school, I think, when we look at the high school is unfortunately over the last few years kind of taken the brunt of some of our cuts. And unfortunately it's something that Ms. Watson has advocated strongly against, but it's something that we've, in my love, had to make that decision. But knowing that we need to get back to where we were previous to this year, and even trying to address some of the requests that Ms. Watson has made over the years. And so looking to bring back 2 math positions, 2 ELA positions, 1 world language. Again, I think we're seeing a significant increase in our class size in our world language classes this year because we, again, did not fill a position. Increasing the number of staff in the business department. A lot of our electives happen in the business department as well as in the world history social studies department. So again, looking to increase staffing there. We had actually had, this is a new request. One of these is a new request. One was unfortunately not filled last year, and so that was a position that was eliminated in FY25. And then you actually heard one of our parents speak earlier, and we don't disagree. For high school our size to have only 1 music and 1 art teacher, Mr. Lynch and Ms. Wood are doing an amazing job in their classes. If you walk by and listen to the music they're producing, or if you walk in and see the art they're producing, it's simply amazing. But I know at times, Ms. Watson, when she's doing her scheduling, has to turn students away because there's simply not enough room for our students to take those classes. So we want to be able to increase the arts as well as the high school. And then increasing proctor positions, again, looking at building security. We obviously have a fantastic security proctor now manning the front door, but being able to increase those positions and also increase proctor positions across the building to be able to provide additional support for our teachers and our students. Then we get into student services. Again, a position we've asked for a few years now is increasing the number of special education administrators. Certainly, you'll see that we certainly need to increase the number of special
educators that we have, but the oversight of programming that we're offering, especially at the preschool level. Our preschool program continues to grow, which is great. Again, we're welcoming all of our students, but certainly to have an administrator at the building there to specifically oversee preschool. When you factor in preschool plus the Mitchell enrollment, you're talking 1,000 plus students, and currently just have 2 administrators overseeing that. So we'd like to be able to add a special education administrator there. Looking at increasing our related service provider staff as well. And again, looking back, one of these positions was previously requested. One is a new position. Looking at our student services, so our special educators, looking to add 5 special educators, again, across the district based on caseload and student need. Also adding a position we've requested before, team chair positions. These positions would be able to take on some of the responsibilities that fall now on our school psychologists and also our special educators. And by default, that would free them up to be able to provide direct service to our students, which unfortunately now they're called away from providing services to our students to, it wouldn't necessarily prevent them from attending meetings, but chairing meetings, writing reports. If we were able to get team chair positions, they would be able to take on some of that responsibility. And then obviously district-wide, looking at adding 14 class size reduction positions. Again, this would be based on enrollment. When we looked at class size average, adding 14 positions would get us to approximately 25 students per class. That is not necessarily the end result of what we would hope. We would certainly always advocate for class size to be in the low 20s, high teens, certainly in any case that we could have. But we figured this was a good start for us. It certainly would address bringing back those positions, and then adding these 14 should see a significant impact in class size. Again, being able to go from 28, 30, down to 25. Again, 3 students may not seem like a lot, but when you talk to our educators, and if you've been in a classroom, 3 students can make a significant difference. The 3000 series, so again, other school services, looking at transportation, looking at health services as well. We are advocating for increasing our nursing staff. This is, again, has been a need for us. We obviously increased our nursing staff, significantly during COVID and coming out of COVID. But what we're also finding now is that the medical needs of our students just simply has increased. We have more medically fragile students attending our district and requiring, more care and intervention throughout the school day. And I know this is, putting a significant tax on our nurses. Not that they're, they have an oath I know they take, and they're fulfilling that oath to provide the highest level of care they can to all our students. We want to make sure that they're resourced and supported as much as possible. When we look at, obviously our huge increase is around transportation. Not just our school day transportation, but our special education costs. When we look at our school day transportation, so thinking of our school buses, we have forecasted potentially having to add additional buses. Obviously, if we're adding additional students, we need to be able to get them to school. And I know depending on the route, this is also something we're working with Lucini. Mr. Schmeltz, our transportation assistant, is working with Lucini to see if there's a possibility of rerouting buses, because some buses are certainly lighter on student enrollment than others. But we may find ourselves in a situation where we have to add another school bus, so we want to make sure that we have built that into the budget. Obviously, the cost of transportation goes up every year based on our contract. So just even a base increase of a couple $100,000 there. And then looking at, again, adding another bus could be, bus to 2 buses could be anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000. What I think is significant, though, is our special education transportation. Obviously, as you know, we transport our students that require transportation within the district, but we also have, students that require transportation outside of the district. Depending on where those students are attending, it could be upwards of $94,000 just for transportation. That doesn't factor in out-of-district tuition. So one student could be an additional almost $100,000. We certainly try to forecast. We do an analysis every year when we look at our student projections
what we think caseloads may be, what the needs might be of our students. And, we understand that every year, students may require, more than what we can provide. And so we do try to account for that when building our budget, that we may have students that have to go out of district. But what I think is significant to share is that we actually had 7 students move in this year. 7 move-in students are not something that we can always prepare for or predict, because we're factoring in our own students and trying to prepare for them. And so those 7 students that moved in, again, are requiring, transportation. So that could be, anywhere up to almost $700,000 that was unanticipated. What I think is also important to note is that we had 8 students in our in-district programming this year that their placement has changed, and now they're, receiving out-of-district services. And so that's, again, another significant change. We do try to forecast and plan for those students, but when we're planning for 8 of our own students, 7 move-ins, you can certainly see how that would drive the cost up of transportation. Operations and maintenance, again, looking to restore the 2 custodial positions that we lost last year, looking to add another facilities position, utility position. Our utility positions really right now kind of perform a multifaceted of responsibilities. They can assist on grounds, they can assist one of our trades workers, they can perform duties at the schools, and so they've just been a valuable position for us over the last couple of years. Unfortunately, we feel as though we need more of those. Cost of utilities, just like at home, your gas, electric, and so forth, water's going up. It's the same for us here at school. So the cost of doing business for you at home is very similar to what we have to go through here. When you might be feeling your costs in other places, the grocery store, and so forth. But there are other costs that you feel that we feel as well. And so this unfortunately drives up the cost of our budget. We obviously, going into FY25, we cut $600,000 from supplies and materials for facilities. We need to get that money back, so looking to restore those goods and services, again, back into the budget. Fixed costs and benefits, the biggest driver here is the cost of health insurance. Again, something that I'm sure you see on a daily basis, and so we're feeling it as well. And we obviously are working with our insurance advisors to forecast out potential expenses. What they're telling us right now, and the numbers won't come out for another month or so, concrete numbers, but they're saying plan a 10% increase. And so when we look at what it costs to provide insurance to our active members, but also our retirees, we want to make sure that we have budgeted accurately for that. And so there's a significant cost increase there as well. And then obviously, unfortunately, because we were not able to keep all of our positions last year, unintended consequence is that our unemployment insurance or our unemployment benefits increased. So we want to make sure that, again, we have accurately budgeted if we're not able to get positions back, and worst case scenario, we're not able to keep all of our current staff, and we want to make sure that we have funds. And then obviously, even things such as our property insurance, our student insurance, that's increased by almost $100,000 as well. And again, these are all numbers that are provided to us from our insurance advisors, and hopefully once the policies are finalized, they're not as significant, but we never want to find ourselves in a situation where we just haven't budgeted the proper amount. And then the 9,000 series, so this is programs at other schools. So yes, it does include charter and school choice, but really the bulk of this is obviously our special education costs and our special education tuitions, either for residential placements, for public day school, private day schools. And again, the state somewhat gives guidance for all districts to plan for. You probably heard me talk a couple years ago, the state had issued down guidance that we should anticipate a 14% increase in out-of-district costs. Thankfully, this year we're only projecting a 5% increase, and so we've built a budget reflective of that. We've obviously tried to build a budget reflective of potential students requiring additional placements out of district. Again, looking at our current student population and their needs, there may be individuals that we just their needs outweigh our current programming. But again, it comes down to those 7 move-ins that we can't always predict. When we look at some of the out-of-district placements, it could be a day program, which could be anywhere from, depending on the day program and the level of need of the student, anywhere from 50 to 150,000. But then we do have some students, unfortunately, that require a significant level of care that, go into a residential school. And, that could be anywhere from $2 to $3 to $4 to $500,000. But again, it also, anytime we have a student that goes into an out-of-district program, so if you have a $100,000 tuition, you more than likely almost have $100,000 in transportation as well. So again, significant increase there. So as I mentioned, we pulled out the 7,000 capital series as well as the 8,000 debt series as well. So 7,000, what we're asking for capital this year is $1.6 million, so $1,692,500. That is a decrease from what we asked for last year. Again, we always look at our HVAC maintenance and improvements where we can, are there any heating issues that we have to address, boiler issues. We do want to install a water filtration system over at the Bridgewater Middle School. Any of our Bridgewater residents, you know that there's communication that goes out from the town from time to time about the water, and so we want to make sure that we're providing safe drinking water and usable water for all of our students and staff. Obviously, we always want to look at our grounds equipment, whether it be our plow trucks, sander trucks, our bobcats, whether it be our lawnmowers. We want to make sure that we're making improvements there. Certainly, a priority for us is always making sure that our security upgrades are taking place, that we're always looking to make sure that our buildings are safe and secure. So whether that be adding additional access points, whether it be replacing exterior doors like we've done this year, we want to be able to continue that next year. And then technology improvements. Obviously, we want to be able to have every school have an auditorium like this, and we've fortunately been able to do that. Rainham Middle School is in the process of being replaced. We want to be able to replace Bridgewater Middle School's screen and projector and install a screen and projector next year. And we obviously made a significant commitment over there to replace the auditorium coming out of COVID, but we want to make sure that it's usable and that we can use it. We also want to make sure that we have our network is backed up at all times. So Mr. Shantz is advocating for at each site installation of a backup program for our networks. And then obviously a security camera. We've made significant improvements to our security camera system, and we want to make sure that they're all talking to each other so that they're not working in isolation. So Mr. Shantz, our local safety officials, can log into one single sign-on and be able to access the cameras in the event that they need to. And then obviously phone system upgrades and replacements as well. And then debt services, again, you can see debt is lower this year, and certainly that's understandable as projects become older in age. Typically, they have a lower cost associated with that. So we've started to pay more principal, and so that the cost actually comes down on that debt. And so we've reduced that as well. Lastly, I just share this last slide with you just to kind of give you a sense, and again, these are not what I would say concrete numbers, but numbers that we know right now. Obviously, this is reflective of our funding that we're receiving, funding that we would anticipate to receive, and then obviously our subtotal. So as you can see, our Chapter 70 funding for this year is $34 million plus. That was a $2.6 million increase, or roughly 8.5% increase. What I'll point out to you is you can see FY25, our Chapter 70 increase was only 1.8% over FY24. And that's where we find ourselves in a significant challenge. Now, what I'll also note is that FY24, Chapter 70 was 12% higher than FY23. FY23 was 18% higher than FY22. So again, as we start to build budgets based on 12% increases in Chapter 70, and then we only receive a 1.8% increase in Chapter 70, you can see the significant challenges that poses to us as a district. And unfortunately, when we're getting 18 or 12% increases from the state, that places less of a burden on the towns. But when we get only 1% increase from the state, the burden is placed solely on the towns. And so we're trying to make up for that lack of funding that we received last year, certainly this year. And I think the numbers that you've seen tonight are reflective of that. You can see again historically Chapter 71, so our regional transportation reimbursements. The number that we've put forward to the school committee tonight, or that I put forward to the school committee and the community tonight, is that 109, the $109 million operating budget. If we were to fulfill that number using what we've received from Chapter 70, Chapter 71, that would basically place the requirement of Bridgewater and Rainham to increase their assessment from last year about 30%. You can see the numbers for Bridgewater would be an increase of $10 million from last year, and Rainham would be an increase of 6.4, so 43 and 27 respectively. Obviously, 30% increase is a significant ask, but this is what we have put forward as a budget, a preliminary budget, based on what we need to be a high-performing school district. And so, that 109 represents approximately a 21% increase over last year's budget. And you can see prior years, last year was about a 2.9% increase. The year before was about a 5.7% increase. Just to note, if we were able last year, FY25, or this current fiscal year, we did not lose those 24 positions, and we were asking for those, and we got the 60 plus that we were asking for, we would only be looking to increase the budget by about 5% to get us to that 109. So I just wanted to share that with you. A 5% increase, it's not unreasonable. And if we were where we should be, that's really all we'd be asking for. But unfortunately, we're asking for a 21% increase, which I understand is a significant increase. But I think we would all agree in this audience. There wasn't anything that we have asked for that is frivolous, that isn't needed, that our students don't deserve, that our staff doesn't deserve. And so we're hopeful that working with our state and local officials, that we'll be able to fulfill this preliminary budget. But certainly over time, we will make adjustments as needed if we have to. So really next steps, as has already been shared with you, March 12th is the public hearing. March 26th is the adoption of the school committee. And May is the Bridgewater Town Council meeting where they'll vote to approve our budget. And then obviously the Rainham Town meeting where they'll do this thing. I did want to just acknowledge and thank several individuals. Obviously my administrative team for helping, the school committee for always being so supportive. Obviously some individuals there that I wanted to recognize and acknowledge. I want to thank our state and town officials for showing up tonight, certainly working closely with both Bridgewater and Rainham prior to this evening, Ms. Robinson and Ms. Garini and Mr. Barnes and Ms. Lavalette. Mr. Lavalette, throughout this process, we started meeting with them early on, as early as September. We continue to meet throughout the fall up until December. And I'm sure we will continue to meet with them as well. But I want to thank them for their partnership and for their support of the district. And certainly if this is what our end result is, that our students are able to graduate with distinction and they go on to successful post-grad life. If anyone's to have any questions, concerns, there's my contact information. Certainly feel free to reach out. We will be sharing this presentation out with the community as we go.
Mr. Powers, why don't you just stay at the podium, that way you can answer questions that may come out of the school committee as we gather back to the front table here. Well, just start down on my left, and right down to the right, if that's okay with everybody. So, Bingo, if you'd like to kick off any questions, statements, or whatever you'd like to do.
I found the presentation to be very helpful. I love the visual and the explanation brought it down. I know it's very complicated to explain all of it, and I think you did an exceptional job. And it was very, very helpful. And I'm really looking forward to seeing information about the spending. I know I brought it up last year, I brought it up again. I'm sorry. I was looking to see information about spending. The district does a really good job indicating what the needs are, what the ask is, and what the funding have been received. but I've been asking last year and this year if we could have some information about spending. Can you explain the challenges in including spending, historical spending from one year to the next in a presentation like this?
I'm sorry, I don't think there would be any challenges. It would just be additional information. We can certainly try to include that where appropriate. I think when we look at, we're building the budget, that is one thing that we're obviously looking at. Not just what we budgeted for the prior fiscal year, but what did we actually spend? And that's really what drives, some of those significant increases. We may have budgeted X amount of money, and what we find is that we've actually spent more in that particular category because there could be some unforeseen expenses that have come up, or in the case of tuitions, move-ins and such. And so when we're building the budget, we don't necessarily try to build the budget on I'll just use a 10% increase on what was budgeted. We try to build the budget on what was actually spent. And so it could be a 10% increase on what was actually spent in the prior fiscal year. But we can certainly try to include some of that information going forward if that would be helpful.
Anything further, Ms. Mako? Mr. DeMarino.
Thank you. Mr. Powers, I just want to thank you, as always, for a very thorough presentation. I just want to, more of a statement and highlight something that you said that is very important. Need. Words have meaning. Need is something that has to happen. Okay? And again, another word you used, deserve. Yes, our students deserve the best. Our staff and our students deserve the best. I said it last year, and I'll say it again this year. I will not vote in favor of a budget that does not give our students the ability to perform at their highest when they're out in the world. Woo! I cannot look at the kids
Go ahead, Mr. DeMarino.
I cannot look the kids that I coach in the eye and say, sorry, but we just couldn't do it for you. That's not what this district has been historically, and it should not be moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Powers, for making sure that those words were in your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeMarino. Ms. Martelli.
I'd also like to thank you. Well put together. We've had many budget meetings getting to this point, and I'm sure there's going to be many
Plenty more, yes.
So I can say that I look forward to some of them, but we'll give it our best shot. This is truly what we need.
Thank you, Ms. Martelli. Ms. Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. I don't get to turn it off. Hello? Okay. Thank you, as everyone else said as well, and I'm going to make it super short before I have another coughing attack. I just had a quick question. Like last year, our turn the page budget, we weren't even able to cover with a 3% increase, right? So what would that look like for this year? Just to turn the page on what we have this year. And you don't have to have it with you, but maybe we can talk about it.
We've kind of looked at that. We're looking at approximately about $10 million when we factor in, some of our costs that we have to, again, turn the lights on. So, we know there's going to be increased costs there. We look at our contractual obligations that we have to fulfill. We're looking at about $10 million just to turn the page to be able to provide, local service.
And that's just to give everybody like perspective, right? Like last year we couldn't even turn that page. So I'm looking forward to the discussions. They're going to be hard, but yeah, we need to provide for our kids. So we're going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. Mr. Loesch.
So thanks, Superintendent Powers, for putting this together. I found it very informative. Some of the things that really stood right now were the amount that's going for tuitions programs, and as well as the transportation costs that have gone with it. I don't think you have to put forward the positions you put forth today. We're going to see these costs rise, and they're going to continue to rise. And not only that, it does a disservice to the children of Bridgewater to have to send them to other places when they're not able to be educated there. So I fully support this. I think, this is a means that we're going to have to be able to address this and bring this down through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. King.
Thank you. I have lots of thoughts, but I will keep it brief. As being on budget chair the past several years, it's always on the budget sub to bring, after we receive this budget, to bring a fiscally responsible budget back to the school committee and to the towns, but then also balancing that with what is it going to serve the needs of our students? And it hasn't been. But it's also, we don't fund ourselves. We rely on the state, we rely on the towns. So I'm really happy to see our state rep here, to see community members here, families, union reps, selectmen, town councilors. We need everyone to be on board and to know this is what we need, and it is a need, in order to serve our students. We know that we're 50% of the town's budget, which is a huge portion of your budgets. But at the same time, we've been doing a disservice to our students. If you look back at one of Mr. Power's earlier slides, in 2014, 24% of our students were high needs, and now we're over 42%. That's almost doubled, but yet the amount of staff went from 327 to 333. We're not keeping pace with our students that have high needs, that need extra supports. And I went over the budget presentation with Mr. Powers and kind of talked it through before tonight, and that initial number was a shock. It doesn't sound fiscally responsible to bring that to the towns. But when you look at what it is composed of, it's composed of ESPs to give those teachers supports where we can't reduce class size. It's to give them that extra set of hands to help them at the foundation grades. It's extra electives, it's extra special education teachers. There's nothing superfluous in there, really. I've been on school committee asking for foreign language at the middle school level. That's not crazy to ask for. Lots of schools have that. But we're at base level. We need special education teachers. We need interventionists. I have a student at the high school, and yes, she's taking high-level math, but she needed help with her math, and there's no interventionist there to help her. So all of our students have needs, and we're not fulfilling those. So this is definitely a budget cycle where we need everyone to be on board and to know what we need.
Thank you. Anything? Yes, Ms. Mainville, I was going to just come down the table one more time, and I'm going to trade with Mr. Powers.
This question is generated by the comments made by my fellow school committee members. If the district received full funding and was able to fully hire staff, are there certain grades or schools where class sizes would remain high because of the size of the school?
So that's a great question. Obviously, some of our schools are at capacity. We have to get very creative. I would never want to say let's not hire a teacher because we don't have space. I think we would look at all possible spaces that we could use. It may unfortunately mean displacing somebody from a current location, but if it means we're able to reduce class size, and that's something we'll look at. When we look at the size of our buildings, obviously our elementary buildings, Merrill and Mitchell, even though Mitchell is brand new, they're basically at capacity. So that's a case where we could look at some of the other learning spaces that exist in that building. But again, now we're taking those opportunities away from our students. In Merrill, there's maybe one or two spaces that we could look at that haven't traditionally been used as classrooms. So that there could be a challenge. It's not as though if school committee, the state, the towns were to say, we'll give you 10 more first grade teachers. I simply don't have room for 10 more first grade teachers. I do not. So there would be challenges there. We would have to obviously look at, again, alternatives to traditional classrooms in some cases, but that's not to say that we wouldn't, and I think we should if we can.
Anything further, Ms. Mainville? Anything further from my left? Anything further from my right? All right, I'm gonna switch with you, Mr. Powers, because I can't deal with what I wrote down in the papers and this thing at the podium. Thank you. So I'm not gonna take very long, I don't think, because Mr. Powers covered a lot of this in his budget discussion. But I just want to start out noting what Ralph Waldo Emerson said a long time ago. Discontent is the want of self-reliance, right? Did I get that right? My English teacher friends in class here? Yeah. So anyway, I want to just talk for a few minutes about why we are discontent right now, and talk about those two big pillars of funding that Mr. Powers talked about, the state and the town. And everything I'm going to talk about is based on that net school spending that Mr. Powers outlined for us, and what's happened over a very long time period. Real snapshots are good to like give you a picture of what's happening now. But I went back and I looked, and everything comes from the DESE website. They do have a great website for that. I went back and I looked back to FY07. And Chapter 78 from the state was almost $3,500 per pupil, 46% of our budget. And in the last fiscal year they have up there, that aid's gone from $3,500 to $5,000, 36% of our budget. So what happens if you take the time to do the math? The town's left to pick up the other amount. And that works out to about a 2.3% increase that the state has given us every year over that time period. If we look at our member at our two towns together, the members of the district, their support over the same time frame went from $4,700 to over $8,800 per pupil. That's a 4% increase a year. Our towns are doing a very good job with the limited amount they have in funding the district the way they can within their budget. 2.3, 4%. Had the state kept up with the town's commitment at 4%, we would have over $9 million more for our budget this year from the state than we do. It would solve a lot of problems. Not all, but a lot. Yes, the governor has recommended a substantial increase in Chapter 70 this year. And while we're certainly grateful for it, I'll note that 1 year can't reverse a tide. 1 year is a nice small step. And of course, as the superintendent admitted, what he asked for is substantial, especially from both our towns. And we know our towns. Everyone in front of you right here knows our towns face, tremendous issues themselves for their limited dollars. Paying for Bristol Plymouth, paying for public safety complex, roads and bridges, water quality, road quality, water supply. Challenges like that abound in our communities. But in 30 years of serving Bridgewater and Rainham, I've learned one thing about our residents. When we're confronted by a challenge, we can rise to meet it, okay? We can rise to meet it. I know that too long have we asked our district, too long have we asked our police, our fire, our DPWs to do more with less. At this point, we have to say we can only do more with more. And I have confidence in everybody stepping up to do that. It's going to be a sacrifice from everyone. Everyone in this room is going to have to look inside themselves and say, do I want to do what's right by me or what's right for the kids and the district? So, I'm hoping we can come up, as a district with a plan to cut some more operating expenses. I'd suggest we meet as often as possible, Ms. King, with both towns as we go through this budget season to keep them very well versed in what we're doing. And hopefully, we can rely on the people of Bridgewater and Rainham to help us out, do the right thing, and make sure that we can fund the district adequately. That said, I'll make a motion to accept the superintendent's FY26 budget as the school committee budget and refer it to the budget subcommittee for further review. Second by Mrs. Giammarino. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. All right. I don't want to get yelled at by my friends who monitor the audio, so I do want to talk to it back here. All right, moving on to new business. Approval of payroll warrants dated December 12, 26, and January 9, 2025. Is there a motion to approve? Made by Mr. Loesch, second by Ms. Davenport. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. 2025-26 school choice. Mr. Powers, you just want to talk about this and introduce it for a second.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are once again requesting your approval to offer school choice. This past year offered school choice just at the 9th grade level. Meeting with Ms. Watson and reviewing that, we would like to continue that practice of offering school choice once again at the 9th grade level.
Is there a motion to do that? Made by Mr. Loesch. Second by Ms. Martelli. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Other business, I had none. Did anyone else have any new business that was reasonably unforeseen? No? Okay, great. We'll move on to public comment. We didn't have a lot at the beginning, so I'm hoping we can adhere to the 12 minutes. But if folks really are doing more, maybe we can waive the rules again. Again, 3 minutes apiece, and identify yourself with name by name and address for the record, please. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Elizabeth Sharp, 1000 South Street, Bridgewater. I'm here once again to continue to advocate for the district to lower their class sizes and make it our #1 priority. As it's been stated many, many times tonight, the class sizes of 30 students in a class of kindergartners, first graders, second, third grade is just unacceptable. As a first grade teacher in a neighboring town who's had 18 to 20 students in my class the last 12 years, it's just mind-blowing to me. My own first grader has 30 students in her class. I couldn't even order Valentine's on Amazon without getting 2 packages. As amazing as the teacher is, and all of the teachers that I've met so far in the district, they're not miracle workers. They're not able to take on the endless important duties of teaching our youngest, most needy students who cannot yet even tie their shoes, button their pants, find the nurse's office, or manage their big emotions, or read or write, without allowing too much and too many to fall through the cracks. With class sizes as high as this, we're digging a hole so deep that many of our students are never able to crawl back out. With smaller class sizes, the teachers would be able to more effectively identify the students' area of need in order to provide them with the academic and social emotional interventions they need immediately in their classroom. The classroom teachers can do this when they don't have 30 kids in their class. This is why our funding needs to be focused on hiring more classroom teachers. This needs to be our #1 priority. So as far as tonight's budget, I am a little bit on edge about the 91 additional positions that we're advocating for, or that Mr. Powers is advocating for. Only 14 of these are actually to reduce class sizes in K to 8. When I first saw the number 14, I was like, okay, 14. And then I realized that was for K to 8 across two different towns, across 6 schools. So that's really 2 teachers in most schools. I'd love to see the numbers, and I know this isn't a back and forth, about how these 14 teachers are really going to change a class of 30 down to 25, when realistically 25 shouldn't even be our ultimate goal, but we have to start somewhere. I'm here to fight tooth and nail for a budget for our students, and I think the presence tonight shows our town understands this is an issue, and I think is ready to commit to fighting for our students, for our schools. So I just hope as the numbers continue, as the budget process continues, that Mr. Powers and school committee, you're very thoughtful and targeted about the positions that are added to make sure they're classroom teachers. The classroom teachers need to be hired first to reduce the class sizes before filling in any other holes. Everything starts in the classroom. The special education students are in the classroom. The ELL students are in the classroom. The students with social emotional needs are in the classrooms. The classroom sizes need to be lowered first before the other positions are thought about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Just name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Casey Rodriguez, 45 James Way, Bridgewater. So I am here as both a teacher and a parent in the district. I also have several nephews and a whole lot of loved ones within this district. And I was very grateful to hear our special education students mentioned numerous times tonight. And I just wanted to speak a little bit more on the impact of staffing restrictions on our most vulnerable students. I'm at the high school here, I'm the transition teacher, and we have 20 plus students in our substantially separate classrooms. We have 15 or more in our life skills classrooms. I'm forgetting about state compliance or compliance with state regulations for a second. This is just an impossible task. These staffing restrictions have also resulted in a lack of integrity in our programming, and by that I mean we have students with very different needs, very different abilities, and very different learning goals, learning alongside each other. These staffing restrictions mean larger caseloads, which means more meetings, more paperwork, more time out of the classroom, and more teacher burnout. My own program started this year with 18 students. Comparable programs are about half that. My students range from very high functioning, taking college classes at BSU, to students with significant cognitive impairments, nonverbal, medically fragile, behavioral needs. I think I speak for all of our teachers when we say we are happy to work with any of these students, but it is impossible to do it all at the same time. Mr. Powers has worked tirelessly to make improvements where he can, and we appreciate him so much for that. But, you know, his hands are tied in so many respects. So anything we can do to lessen his burden, to lessen our burden, will result in better outcomes for our students, because right now they are simply not getting what they need. Thank you.
Two people, okay.
Hi, my name is Liz, or Elizabeth Brick. I'm 39 Quebec Circle Extension. I'm a parent, and I've been here as a military family. We've moved around the country a little bit. And this is the first time I've ever been to a meeting like this. I'm a little bit nervous. Thank you for allowing me to speak. But it's the first time I've also seen the need to come to a meeting like this. I've never, in any of the states or counties or schools that we've been to, had this type of concern for my kids' education. At Bridgewater Middle School, our kids as large as you, 5, 6 feet tall, some of them weigh as much as us. They're using bathrooms that were installed for toilets that were installed for kindergartners. This was the old elementary school for me. This is demoralizing for our kids. It should not be that they are expected to provide a good learning environment for them. The locker situation. There's lockers lining in the halls. We're told they have to go use a locker. The lockers don't work. Some of the teachers are graceful enough to provide a common area to drop backpacks. These areas are not attended to watch these students' possessions during the day. But also, those lockers, if they do put them in there, there's not enough janitorial staff to go unlock these lockers for our kids all day long. So we can't send our kids to school with coats. The bus does not come within 3/4 of a mile from my house. They say that they are not able to have enough buses to come down to our neighborhood to pick up the kids. So I'm down income for my household because I need to drive my kids to the bus stop or to school because the bus doesn't service there. I send my kids to that bus stop walking 3/4 of a mile with winter weather protective clothing because there's nowhere to hold it at the school because the lockers do not work. There's a lot of cafeteria. There's no place for a principal to have an assembly to address the kids, whether it's a need for an emergency or a need to just morale, to have our kids proud of where they are. There's no pep rally spaces. The cafeteria itself is an old, antiquated cafeteria, must have been built for a fraction of what the population is. So there's an additional cafe used. There's not enough staff to oversee all of these kids, to have a safe environment just to have a 30-minute lunch period. And so that's they need staffing and just people to observe for that. Ventilation and fans. The building has no central air conditioning. So as if you imagine last year when we moved here in 100-degree weather, these kids, not only is it not a good educating and learning environment, or for our amazing teachers to work, conduct a healthy learning environment, we also had, from what I understand, a teacher had passed out. A student had actually gotten sick and vomited on the hallway, and I know that because my kids came home with it. And it's disturbing. It's not a healthy, a good learning environment, but it's absolutely not a safe health environment to not have proper ventilation. Last year at the 8th grade party, we had in the old auditorium that's there that has no ceiling fans, no ventilation, nothing. There was over 100, 150 kids that had to stay there for their party in a 100-plus degree auditorium where they were supposed to be having fun at 8 o'clock on a summer night, right at the end of the year. This
Go ahead and give you about 30 seconds to wrap up this, right?
should not be acceptable. The large classroom size, the 7th grade went from 3 teams to 2 teams. No more staff, meaning that the staff that was currently there had to then absorb that higher class load. That's not just the general education staff that's now stressed out because they had to absorb those kids, but the special ed, which, by the way, absolutely needs some type of continuity throughout the district and for the kids for a language-based reading program, because there are so many special needs and struggling readers. There's no continuity, and every single semester or year, my child is changed to a new reading curriculum, and therefore he is not,
Okay, Ms. Wright, if you have comments, feel free to email them to Ms. McDougall, and we can include them in the record.
Right.
We're going to move on from there. Ms. Mallory?
Ashley Mallard again, 270 Grange Park, Bridgewater. I know a lot of my staff left because I've asked them to come from near and far, and I appreciate just ending the night with a few comments. One thing I know I would like to see, and some of my friends in town actually brought up, was that it would be nice to see it, one of the charts in some of the future meetings that show if you hire one more teacher for this grade in this school, what does that drop the class size to for that grade in that school? Because averages can be misleading. I know it probably definitely wouldn't be easy to understand in a high school, but definitely that pre-K through 8. Specifically, that mention of Bridgewater Middle School, that's a little deceiving for people to understand. From my councilmen that are in here, is just so you understand that when we see these numbers, it's a little deceiving because there's still more cuts with movements. So like we said, we went from a team, we lost a whole entire team, so teams got absorbed. Now you have teams in the middle schools that don't even necessarily have certified teachers in subject matters. Some teach multiple subjects. I've had kids at the high school before who had history classes taught by their math teachers. Not that I don't love my math teachers, but no one wants me teaching history as a history teacher teaching math, right? So these have long-term effects on your kids' growth, and these are issues that I'm really concerned about. So my big concern here is also that these numbers, like these 14 additional, Mr. Powers, you've said, correct me if I'm wrong, but it brings us down to 25 average starting the year, but we know our numbers continue to grow in the year. So I just keep wanting to reemphasize when we look at building in Bridgewater that I have major concerns on this, and I invite my local membership to continue to come to your zoning board and building meetings and voice your opinion there. But lastly, I would like to say, what if this doesn't happen? What if the towns don't support it? I'm trying my hardest. My staff's trying their hardest, and I know you guys are. I'd like to hear a commitment to cut sports, to cut after-school activities, to cut preschool activities, to cut clubs. I don't want to see a BR that was around when I was in college, where the high school ended at 1 o'clock, so the staff could have prep at the end of the day because we had a lack of staff that 15-year veterans got cut so that we could have gym once a week and the state had to come in and slap us on the wrist. There's a lot of people around here, if you just moved into town, you don't know that's happened before. This community has failed to support us significantly since the recession. On top of it, you haven't had Spanish or French or languages in the middle schools in years, and communities get that around here. And am I excited to hear that maybe the elementary school classes will drop to 25 and my friends in the next two communities over have 19 in first grade? Hello. My kids too, I got a few years to turn this around, but you better believe I want it turned around as soon as possible. I need you guys to continue to show up, and I look forward to the opportunity. Thank you for the clarification on the meeting and that May meeting. But I would like to see that as we move forward, maybe that side-by-side comparison of as staff is hired, how that is going to reduce class size for the individual grades, because it's difficult to understand. And I would love to see that the education, as suggested, is prioritized. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. All right, looks like we have more comments for 12 minutes or hold on, well, I'm down. I'll just take a motion to extend public comment. Made by Mr. DeMarino, second by Ms. Davenport. All those in favor? Opposed? We'll extend public comment for 9 more minutes. 3 more folks. Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Loy, 120 Oak Ridge Lane of Bridgewater. I'm speaking as a teacher here at the high school. My husband is also a teacher, and we have 2 children in district, one in the preschool and one in first grade. The Mitchell Elementary staff is amazing. I do just want to address some chatter that I've heard about why can't the teachers handle, 30 students now? Back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I was in a class of 20 or 30, and we were fine. So I want to just put a little more detail and reiterate what Mr. Powers was saying, but from a teacher's perspective. The high needs that he was speaking of, just to give you an idea, the social, emotional, behavioral needs of these students have increased exponentially. We're still feeling the effects of the pandemic. We haven't fully recovered. The increase in 504s, especially for anxiety. We received red envelopes. We received no contact orders. These have all increased significantly in recent years. Medical needs have been mentioned. The IEPs, including them in the general ed places, in the classrooms, which is wonderful. We should be more inclusive, but we need more support to do that. The increasing diversity, the changing culture of our district, it's beautiful. We love that. We want to encourage that, but we need more support. The English learners in our classroom. The rapidly changing technology, these one-to-one Chromebooks are wonderful, but supervising the students' proper use of them in a world with AI that's changing every day, that is a task that is, it's hard to explain how difficult it is to be teaching right now when you have to really work to make sure that the students are doing authentic learning and not having somebody else do it for them. The phones, the AirPods, the social media, we know what the research says about these things, and the teachers are competing with these things. I'm far less interesting than any influencer, even on my best day. We know that connection between home and school is of utmost importance. And we know that a team approach to students is of utmost importance. That's what's best for students. So when I was in school, my parents had no idea other than report cards and, if they attended a parent conference. But now our teachers are trying to do better, right? We're communicating with team members within the school, paraprofessionals, counselors, adjustment counselors, nurses, resource officer, assistant principal, principal. Then you have, your families. We have families with different dynamics, divorces, DCF involvement.
Ms. Holly, this is going to be a 30-second warning.
Great. Connection is so important in educating, and we need lower class sizes in order to make those connections and make authentic learning happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Yes, ma'am. Again, name and address for the record. Thank you.
Natalie Mears on 45 Star Road. Sorry, I always clever when I'm in front of crowds. I had the opportunity to see my classroom for my separate child at the Williams get redistributed this week because I pushed through to DESE and said that it wasn't fair that my child was in a classroom with 17 children and that his teacher was driving. So this week, he's now in a classroom with a lot smaller numbers, and he's able to get taught. And I'm sorry that if it burdened the budget more without getting passed through the town, and I just hope that everyone gets this positive experience that I've been able to have without having to go through skipping the lines and going through DESE and feeling like you've thrown your school through the bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Going once, twice. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for participating with your public comments. I don't mean to be mean about time, but we do try to stay on schedule as well. I think all the teachers understand that. That said, our next meeting is going to be February 26th at here at PR in the upper lecture hall, and we'll take a motion to adjourn. Made by Ms. Davenport, seconded by Ms. Martelli. All those in favor?